So what is archaeology? I just want to look at a few different definitions for a moment because I think archaeology is misunderstood. Here's the most basic definition you can get on the internet, Wiktionary. That is the Wikipedia of dictionaries. From ancient Greek, archaeologia, antiquarian lore, ancient legends, history. From archaeos, primal, old, ancient, logos, speech, oration, study. All right, so the study of ancient stuff. That's great. It sounds very vague, but this might actually approach what archaeology really is more than some of the more limited definitions, such as this one. This is from the Society of American Archaeology, which is one of the major professional organizations in the field. Archaeology is the study of ancient and recent human past through material remains. It is a subfield of anthropology, the study of all human culture. From million-year-old fossil remains to our earliest human ancestors in Africa to 20th century buildings in present-day New York City. Archaeology analyzes the physical remains of the past in pursuit of a broad and comprehensive understanding of human culture. All right, sounds great. It gets the wide variety of the human temporal past in there, but it does something that really bothers me. And that is that it specifically says analyzes the physical remains of the past. Now, in a lot of ways, archaeology does deal with the physical remains of the past, but that is only a methodological issue. You folks, many of you are readers of Barr, you know that material culture is important. You know that the artifacts are important. But you also know at the same time that the ideas and the non-physical things are also essential. And that's, in a lot of ways, one of the big beefs that I have with defining archaeology according to this way. Let's look at somebody closer to home, Kathleen Kenyon, 1956. Archaeology is the method of finding out about the past of the human race, in its material aspects, and the study of the products of this past. Well, that's an interesting thing, the products of the past. What does the past amount to? What does it produce? And more specifically, as we'll see in a definition coming up, how does it culminate in what we are and do today? David Clarke, this fellow unfortunately died very young, just after this quote, not literally just after this quote, but in 1973 or 4. He was one of the instrumental archaeologists in thinking about processual archaeology, which brings in many scientific elements and a lot of the things that I'll be talking about today, the multidisciplinarity. He says, archaeology is the discipline with the theory and practice for the recovery, this is what I like, of unobservable hominid behavior patterns from indirect traces in bad examples. It's great. He's pointing out that we have this sketchy, patchy, difficult to understand archaeological record that we have to make sense of. And this is a key definition in pointing out that difficulty. However, one thing that I will observe is I would not necessarily call these bad examples. Bad samples, sorry. How you judge a sample, that is, how you perceive the types of information you can extract from it, depends on your tools. I can look at my jacket with my naked eye and say, yeah, there's some like thread and things like that in there. But if I brought out a microscope and looked at it very closely, I can tell you a lot more about that sample. And I think that's an important thing. And I throw this in here because this, also by David Clarke, but this hammers home one of the lessons that I'd like to point out today. David Clarke says, archaeology is, after all, one discipline. That's the exact opposite of the argument that I'm making today. Archaeology is the use and necessity of using every discipline out there. In terms of the old guard, my good friend, William Flinders Petrie, perhaps gets closest to home in what I'm trying to argue today. Archaeology, the knowledge of how man has acquired his present position and powers. Okay, the first part of the definition is great. The acknowledgement that what we're seeking is not necessarily the artifact, but it's the knowledge inherent in that artifact, and also how that has culminated in who we are today. He goes on, archaeology is one of the widest studies. Aha, he recognizes the vast amount of material and disciplines we need to address it. Best fitted to the open mind and to produce that type of wide interests and toleration which is the highest result of education. Now in his Victorian day, this makes a lot of sense, and it perhaps sounds a little bit arrogant to bring this out today, but I really feel this way. Archaeology is fantastic because for people, at least people like me, and I suspect like many of you, archaeology is the chance for you to engage in all sorts of disciplines. Some of you are interested in science, some in the Bible, some in ancient texts, you name it. Archaeology brings all of these things together, and I think that's what Flinders Petrie was getting at, and that's definitely what I'm getting at today, which brings us to my definition. Don't quote it yet because it's still evolving. Archaeology is the ultimate discipline, tasked with documenting, reconstructing, and understanding the ancient past as completely as possibly, that should be possible, using the tools and theoretical approaches of as many disciplines as possible.